Welcome into Let's Talk About It. I'm excited about today's guest because I have known him since I was 14 years old. I can't really even imagine a time when there was a Boys Ranch without Mike Pacino. Mike Pacino, what is your official title now?
I don't have one right now.
You don't have one?
I was vice president of operations.
For the longest time.
Since I told them that I was going to be retiring, and they said, well, we need you to start working with our donor base. I just moved over and started doing that. And I haven't seen a job description in 5 years.
But you have done so much. And the reason why I wanted to talk to you, obviously the Boys Ranch Rodeo is coming up, but few people know more about the history of Boys Ranch and the rodeo than Mike Pacino. And so to give everybody a little bit of background, I was at Boys Ranch. I had been there 2 years. This would have been in 1987. And I remember you and your family walking up and sitting at our table, and we stood up and introduced ourselves, and you sat down. I think that was your first day, and I've known you ever since. I watched your kids grow up, and then you've watched me grow up.
That's right. That's right.
It's been a minute.
It has.
So, what brought you to Boys Ranch? I've always wanted to know this because in all these years of us even working with the rodeo together, all of that, I didn't know the background story of what was the calling on your heart to end up at Boys Ranch back in 1987.
Well, that was the year that we took on Girlstown USA, remember?
I do.
Their board had asked our board to assume the control of Girlstown because they were having financial difficulties. Well, Boys Ranch didn't own a computer back then, not in the Amarillo office, not out of Boys Ranch. And Girlstown had a very antiquated Unix computer system, but Boys Ranch was buying a new AS400 IBM mainframe, which I was very familiar with, was the company I was working for before. And Gene Heyman and Don Abston called me and said, hey, we'd like to take you out to lunch. And I knew Don, I'd known Don for 12 years. And I said, well, I'm always open for lunch. So we went to lunch, and they started telling me about this Girlstown and this new computer system they were getting in that we had been using at this other company for years. Said, we'd like you to come to work for us. And I said, well, I've got a job. Said, yeah, but we want you to come to work for us. We need you to help us with getting Girlstown integrated into Boys Ranch. And I said, it sounds like you need Boys Ranch integrated into the computer systems. Yeah. And they said, yes. So I agreed. I thought that was a neat opportunity to come back and work with Don Abston again. So I did. I came to work, and I started traveling to Girlstown 2 or 3 times a week, learning their system, and then training our accounting system and our HR system, which HR was accounting back then, putting all that on that computer and then melding the Girlstown system in. So that's when I was hired, was to come in. I was IT back then. I have zero ability with IT today. But back then, for Boys Ranch, I was the expert.
Wow. Yeah. I had no idea. Because to me, I always, because of all the years of having grown up out there and everything else, when I would think of Boys Ranch Rodeo, a lot of times I would think of Mike Pacino, because how many years did we do it together? It's been a while.
All of them.
Right. And so the dichotomy was never there, that you didn't do that stuff. What was it like bringing your family when you guys moved out to Boys Ranch? Because it was such a probably different from any other job you've ever had.
Well, when we moved out to Boys Ranch, I had a moving van, and I pulled it up there in front of the headquarters apartment, right? Yep. It used to be the Boys Center. The apartment's there. And we opened the door up, and of course I had, Coco was 3, and Christopher was 5, and Aaron was 7, and Terry was 12. So we didn't have a lot of help, Sandra and I didn't. But it wasn't 5 minutes after we got there that Stevens Home showed up with Larry Sorgen as the house parent, and all those boys. We had that thing unloaded in 20 minutes and took 5 years off of all my furniture's life doing it. But I'm going to tell you,
it got done.
They helped, and they were very polite and I got to know those kids too. Now, I became associated with Weigel Home, where you were, but I covered Stevens Home a lot. When they came open and they needed coverage, I covered that because those boys took care of me. I mean, they did that day, and it was really impressive.
Well, Boys Ranch has been taking care of you too for a while. You raised all your kids out there. Now we're raising grandkids out there.
Oh yeah, I had 4 when I moved out there. 2 were mine, and 2 were my niece and nephew that we raised. And after that, Joe Ben was born out there in 1990, and then we adopted Andrew in 1998 as a 3-year-old. So 6 kids I've raised out there that have gone to school there. And of course, Terry graduated from Channing. She was back before the girls. But all the rest of my kids, the other 5, graduated from Boys Ranch. And it has been a blessing to them and to me.
How many of your kids have worked or are working for Boys Ranch?
Oh, Christopher worked there for a while. Andrew worked there for a while. But Joe Ben...
Joe Ben.
He went on a rodeo scholarship from Boys Ranch and went to Hill College, got his 2 years done there, and then took his scholarship over to West Texas A&M and got his degree in soil sciences there. And he applied for our farmer position, which was open, and he came to work for us and started working on our soils out there and everything. And when the farm and ranch manager position came open, he applied for that, and now he's our farm and ranch manager. Yeah. And he married a girl he met there at WT, and she was from Connecticut, but she was into horses. She was in the horse program there at WT, and now she's one of our FFA teachers. And they have my grandson out there and another grandchild getting ready to come in February. So, and then Coco.
I was going to say Coco
was 2 when we came to Boys Ranch, and she graduated in 2004.
Gosh,
2004.
I'm so old. Yes.
Yeah. And she went on to college at York College in Nebraska, came back, got her teaching certification, and she's been teaching at the Mimi Farley Elementary School for 16 years now. Her husband's our lead FFA teacher, so they live on the campus, and I still have 3 granddaughters there. They had 2 more that have already grown up and left, and so I've got 3 granddaughters, a grandson, and a grandson on the way out there.
How would you say that Boys Ranch has changed your life?
Oh, my gosh.
I know you've impacted a lot of kids throughout the years. I'm one of them. But what has Boys Ranch done for you?
I cannot imagine ever having been as involved in a community as I was at Boys Ranch. You know, I got to cover homes. I got to referee intramural ball games and wrestling matches and that kind of thing. And that was, you're talking 7 days a week.
Not bad for an old computer guy.
No, 7 days a week. And in the fire department, I was active in the fire department for over 30 years. I ran the chains at all our home ball games for 25 years, and I was in the security department. I mean, as a backup security, got my training there. I was an EMT for 16 years out there. I'm still on 3 boards, but I've been on as many over the years, as many as 8 different boards that were tied into Boys Ranch somehow. Wow. And no, that I don't believe a third of what I did out of Boys Ranch would have happened to me had I not come to Boys Ranch. Yeah. And my kids too. Yeah. I mean, I got to admit, I rarely saw my kids when we lived at Boys Ranch because they were so involved in everything. They had work jobs in the morning. They went to school. They went to their work jobs afterwards. Then they had athletic training, and I mean, they were in rodeo, football, cheerleading, basketball. It was crazy. Yeah. And we were involved I was chasing kids for years to ball games all over the Panhandle, sometimes 3 in a day, 3 different towns.
And you lived to tell the story about it.
I can't imagine not having done it.
Well, on behalf of all the Boys Ranchers that you spoke life into and did something with, thank you for doing that, and thank you for continuing to do it in your new title, even though there's not an official description. We've got Mike Pacino off the books here. All joking aside, I'm curious because you know so much about Boys Ranch history. And you continue to learn stuff all the time. What are the top 5 things that most people would not know about Boys Ranch, whether it's some of the cemeteries that you guys have found or some of the lost history about Boys Ranch?
Well, you started out with cemeteries. Let's just talk about it. The Boys Ranch is built on the old ghost town of Tascosa, Texas, which started in 1876 and essentially was dead as of 1915 when they moved the courthouse to Vega. But there are 5 basic cemeteries on Boys Ranch property and a 6th one just across the property line on the Lit Ranch, which is the Casimiro Romero Cemetery. But Boys Ranch has the Boys Ranch Alumni Cemetery. Mm-hmm. We have Boot Hill, which, by the way, there's essentially 3 Boot Hills in the United States. Dodge City was first. Tascosa was second. Tombstone was third.
Really?
3 years after Tascosa, before Tombstone's Boot Hill was set up. So we've got Boot Hill. We've got the Cheyenne Cemetery with an awesome historic headstone back there, sandstone headstone that I've never seen one that intricate or that well done in an Old West cemetery, and that's Dudley Pinnell's headstone. It stands about 4 feet tall, and it's sandstone with a rope border, and 1880.
Because back in the day, if you're working and you die, they buried you there.
They buried you and they marked it, but the marker was probably gone within a year or two. This guy's marker, they thought so much of him that that marker is still in very readable, very good shape, and it's very historic.
How did y'all find these?
Well, that one, of course, was on that property we bought in 1967 from Roy Turner. And it's not the Roy Turner who was one of the first 9 boys at Boys Ranch, but Roy Turner owned 3,200 acres out west of the Boys Ranch campus, when the Boys Ranch campus was 500 and some acres. Well, in 1967, Cal really wanted that piece of property, 3,200 acres, and Roy agreed to sell it. And we have a book as you walk into the headquarters that lists 3,200 sets of donors that bought an acre each of that 3,200, and the Boys Ranchers were one of them, bought an acre of that property for Cal Farley.
Wow.
And so we own that property, and that Cheyenne Cemetery is on that property, because the old town of Cheyenne, which then changed its name to Magenta, was on that property over there next to the railroad.
Yeah. Magenta is one of my favorite for most people who don't know Boys Ranch. So let's say you're in Amarillo, you're driving past Boys Ranch to go to Channing or Dalhart or up into New Mexico. Magenta is what you see on the left side. As you're passing Boys Ranch, it's over to the left side, which I think is some of the prettiest land that we have. It is just, it's remarkable.
Yeah.
Okay, so the cemeteries. What else? Something that most people don't know.
Well, they don't know that of the old ghost town of Tascosa, we still have the courthouse there. And in fact, in 1939, when Cal Farley started Boys Ranch, the first kids lived there.
Yeah.
And it had kids living in it all the way to 1961.
See, I didn't realize it was that late, because one of the many jobs I had out at Boys Ranch, I did a lot of different things, was cleaning the museum.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the jobs. And so we got to go around and read and just look at all this stuff, because we were constantly cleaning. I didn't realize it had lasted that long.
Yeah, and then Sherm Harriman got a hold of it and started aligning it out as a museum, and they changed the name to the Julian Bivens Museum. Up to that point, it had just been called the courthouse. And it's now the Julian Bivens Museum, but it still has the centennial marker from the state of Texas in front of it. It's got a plaque on it talking about the fact that it was built in 1884. And then we still have the Oldham County Schoolhouse back there that was built in 1885, and it operated all the way to 1955, 70 years. And it's the oldest standing adobe schoolhouse in the state of Texas. But 70 years that was there, kids coming and going, right? And it was first grade through 12th grade, it was accredited. Only one student ever graduated from there. Edward Turner. Roy Turner's brother graduated in 1928.
What?
One student. Because kids back then would go to school till they could read, write, and do a little math. And then they went back to work on the farm or the ranch. Edward Turner was, the family was able to let him go ahead and finish school there. And his diploma, the only diploma ever, is hanging on the wall in that old schoolhouse.
All right, I've got to go. This is crazy. I've been a part of Boys Ranch since 1985 in some way, fashion, form, or another. I've never been into the schoolhouse.
You need to come. I tour that every time when I take people around.
I got to check that out.
It is really nice.
All right, so we've got the cemeteries, we've got the courthouse, we've got we've got some pretty famous people that have come through and toured that place too, right?
Well, toured it, supported it. Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. But the movie Boys Ranch was made in 1944-45. It was released in 45. And MGM got a hold of the story of Boys Ranch from an article in the Saturday Evening Post called Alley Cowboys. And their producers saw that and called Cal and said, hey, we'd like to come out and see if we can do a movie out there. And Cal was all for it. Yeah. Well, they flew over before they actually went down and talked to Cal. And that aerial photograph they took is in my office. It's the earliest aerial photograph of Boys Ranch ever, because it was taken in 44, early 44. Well, they finished that movie. Cal did not realize that when they did that movie, he knew he was going to get a little money from it, to buy some of the buildings after World War II from the Dalhart Army Air Base. But what he didn't realize was that movie was going to make him national. That movie went all over the United States, and all of a sudden he was getting requests from New York, Miami, Dallas, Houston, because all the kids prior to that were from the Panhandle. people who knew about Boys Ranch. All of a sudden, there were people from Los Angeles calling him saying, I have a son that needs to come out to Boys Ranch. He really didn't realize that's what was going to happen.
Wow.
And he went national at that point. But the other thing that happened was that in Hollywood, that movie came out. All of a sudden, Roy Rogers became interested in Boys Ranch, and he came out for our 5th annual rodeo in 1949. We had to move the rodeo to Amarillo because we had 15,000 people come. Then we had...
is that the only time it was ever moved?
Yes.
Yeah.
Off of the ranch.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Bob Hope came out in 48, did a fundraiser in Amarillo for us, and that's how we got our water tower. It was put up in 49. So Art Linkletter was involved. Mel Tillis was involved. Tom Landry came out twice, once while you were there.
I was out there.
To do our athletic banquet.
Yeah. Wow.
So there's been a lot of famous people come and gone. And of course, one of our alums became a state senator and then a U.S. congressman, Bill Sarpolis.
That's right.
And his congressional office is upstairs in the courthouse. And the desk that's in there, he bought when he left Washington because that desk had belonged to a senator from Massachusetts who became president in 1960. John F. Kennedy's desk. So he bought it when he left there, and it's up in that courthouse.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. I've always wondered this, Mike Pacino. Has there ever, obviously the Boys Ranch movie, but with everything with like the Taylor Sheridan stuff that's going on, it seems like at some point I want to be like, hey, you should go out there. There's some great stuff. Okay.
There's some great history. If they want to come out and see the West, this is where it started in the Texas Panhandle.
Wow.
They need to come out, and I do history tours. They just call and request, and we set it up, and I'll do a history tour that takes an hour or a day. It's up to them.
All right.
It's all there.
If anybody knows Mr. Sheridan, we sure would like him to come out and take a tour of Boys Ranch.
We would. I get calls from people who are on the East Coast and West Coast that call me and say, is that really the way those ranches are? I said, no, first of all, most of those people out here are Christian, and they don't use that kind of language. And second of all, they don't try to kill their neighbors, or the neighbors not trying to kill them. I said,
quite friendly.
That's Hollywood, but it's entertainment.
Yeah.
We're a little more conservative.
Yeah. So Boys Ranch, how big is it now? How many thousand?
Right at 12,000 acres.
12,000 acres. Most of which is probably over. Is it on the Magenta side?
Yeah, a little over 11,000 acres is across the highway, west of the highway, and it's used for raising hay. We have 300 plus head of cows, calves, and bulls over there. We're a cow-calf operation. We'll sell a few hundred head every year at sale, and then we consume the rest.
Yeah.
So and we have a roundup in May, an actual branding roundup. All the kids can be involved that want to be. There's kids out there who have never seen the back end of a calf that are now stretching them on the ground and getting to brand them. If that's what they want, and then they grow up and they can tell their family, boy, when I was a kid, we used to do these brandings the old-fashioned way.
One of my favorite, I have a lot of wonderful memories of Boys Ranch, but during the summer each year we would do camp out.
Right.
And so what that basically means is your whole dorm would load up, and you'd go over to the horse tack area. They would put you on horses, and you would ride that horse over to Magenta. As long as you had your horsemanship,
right.
You had to go through your horsemanship to do that. They just didn't put anybody on there, but we did a horsemanship, and then we would ride over to Magenta, and we'd camp out. And we'd camp out that weekend, and I just thought that was, man, I felt like John Wayne. I'm on my horse. I'm just great wide open. You couldn't see anything but dirt, and yeah, it's great.
And the homes do trail rides a lot, and we do a Thursday night prayer ride. One Thursday night is boys that go over and they ride to Edge of the World out there, overlooking the Canadian River out to the west.
There's also a movie if you haven't seen that, that's also a really good movie about
Edge of the World.
Edge of the World, yeah.
And the girls will go the next Thursday night. So, and the chapel staff and the horse staff go out there and take them out there. And then that area you were talking about camping in over at Magenta Lake, that lake is still there. The covered area is still out there, picnic tables, and then anybody who wants to go out there and camp can.
Yeah.
I say anybody. If you're not from Boys Ranch, you got to talk to Joe Ben.
Make a phone call.
Yeah, make a phone call.
Yeah, don't let Joe Ben catch you on the property.
Yeah, that's right.
That. What in terms of the rodeo? It's coming up in October 18th, right?
October the 18th.
You'll be there?
I'll be there.
I'll be there. I'm announcing with my good friend Forrest Abear. We've been doing that a minute or two. It's, again, one of my favorite things. You guys pay us in peanut butter M&Ms, so, oh, man, it's so good. What is it that makes, why would you, if you could tell somebody who hasn't been out to Boys Ranch, why should they come out to the rodeo?
To support the kids. You know, the kids work with rodeo schools all year long now. It's not just in the summertime because we've got an indoor arena now, and we have professionals come out and do rodeo schools even during the winter. And then we have kids that ride in these jackpot rodeos around the Panhandle area, and they're trying to get prepared for that day, to show their skills to an audience that hasn't seen them. And they absorb that support and those cheers, and it makes such a difference in their lives.
I think that's a good point to go back to. Really, that's what Cal Farley. Let's go back to do a little history over the very first rodeo and why Cal Farley said, "Hey, we need to get this done."
Yeah, well, he wanted to show the Panhandle what was going on out at Boys Ranch, and he thought by having that rodeo, which the kids had already been, riding and everything, but he thought, man, if I can get people out here to see what's happening. And see what these kids are doing and how they're succeeding. They're not in trouble in the streets of Amarillo. And so he advertised for the rodeo, and he expected maybe 100 cars to come out, You had to ford the river. There's no bridge.
By the way, there was no bridge. You literally had to drive through the river.
Right. It was a little more than he expected. About 500 cars showed up, and by the time the first 150 got across, the rodeo was in full swing, and there was a whole bunch of those people who weren't going to get across. They had to pull most of them across, and they weren't going to be there in time to see the rodeo. So Cal had kids go out to those cars and take them a little food and tell them what was going on and talk to them about the rodeo and kind of give them some experience. Now, they still let them come across if they wanted to, and a lot did. And, of course, they showed them what was going on out there, but the rodeo was over for most of them before it ever started because they couldn't get across the river in time. But Cal didn't expect that many people to come. So he was a little more prepared the next year. He started telling people to leave earlier and let's get you over here. And they actually told him about the road going north out of Amarillo toward Dumas. You could come over on four-way highway through Channing. It was longer, but you knew you could get there.
Yeah, that's the very first way I ever got to Boys Ranch.
Was it?
Matter of fact, yeah, we went that way, and then just being creative throughout the years of trying different ways to get in and out of Boys Ranch. Yeah. So, Mike, the thing about you were talking about Cal Farley, and he didn't know, which surprised me because he was such a great salesman.
Yes,
he could sell anything. I think there should be a movie about Cal Farley. Just all the things that he did, from serving our country to playing professional baseball to all of the incredible things that this guy did. But he could sell anybody on anything. Listening to those old tapes of his were remarkable. And the second he realized he had to go national, he couldn't turn these people down. Mm-hmm. He went national on the road, and he'd actually take a kid or two with him and go speak to civic organizations all over the United States and trying to get support, saying, we've got this thing going, and we were going to have kids coming in from both coasts, and we could use that support. And he kept Boys Ranch funded by being out there promoting Boys Ranch. You're right. He was probably the best promoter anybody will ever know, and a movie should be made about him. Absolutely.
Should be.
And Mimi Farley has a phenomenal story, too. But here's a person who dedicated at one point, to give everybody a little bit of a background of just even going back prior to 1939. A lot of people don't know that Cal Farley was a big part of the Maverick Boys and Girls Club, Kids Inc. He had wide-ranging. But go back to that time where Cal Farley decided, I got to open this place. What made him do it?
Well, essentially it was going to be the Great Depression. He knew that there were kids that were running the streets. Their dads had left during the Depression to supposedly send money back or bring their family with them, and it didn't happen. So there was a lot of kids on the streets, and they were getting into trouble, and he knew it. He would go to baseball games, and see these kids running around out there waiting for a ball to be hit out of the park so they could bring it in to get in. And he would talk to them and find out their story and how they really had no supervision. And that's when he started talking about the Maverick Boys Club and Kids Inc. Well, that took care of about 90% of those boys, but he kept talking about this 10% that had nowhere to go in the evenings and stuff. And
they'd show up early and they'd leave late. Yeah.
And they were getting getting into trouble with theft and vandalizing, and he just needed to get him. He knew he needed to get him out of that inner city environment, out in the country. So he gets with Julian Bivens and says, I need a place out in the country that I can start a boys ranch. He had no idea. He knew Julian had thousands of acres of land, but he didn't even think about Old Tascosa. And Julian took him out there because he knew he had converted the courthouse into kind of his western headquarters. So it had a kitchen, it had a bathroom, it had running water, had a septic system, it had gas run in from Channing. And he offered that to Cal, and Cal said it was perfect. It was perfect. And he started bringing those boys out there. In fact, the first people that were in there helping take care of the kids were people who worked for Julian Bivens, who were kind of ranch hands out there. But no, that's how he needed to get that started. It still works today. Think about it. And I don't know if this is going to rankle anybody, but if you take a kid out of that inner city environment today and you move him out to Boys Ranch, you've got half your work done because you've removed him from an unsafe, unwholesome lifestyle into one that he's going to realize is safe. Boys and girls are going to realize it's safe. They're going to realize nobody's trying to take advantage, and they've got so many opportunities. So that just getting them out of that inner city or wherever they're coming from, that bad environment, out to Boys Ranch, does a lot to begin with. And then the therapeutic way that we work with these kids and try to meet their needs just finishes it up. And the kids thrive. They do. The kids thrive.
And for those people who are watching this, and you guys know my passion for Boys Ranch, obviously, it's a place I still call home to this day. It radically transformed my life. We wouldn't have that without, first of all, Cal Farley seeing a need,
right,
and then going to that need and making sure it was met in the most unorthodox way of moving a bunch of kids out into an old courthouse. But that happened in 1939, and it has been going strong every day since. And that mission continues now with young men and young women. And we talk a lot about the kids. I think I want to talk a little bit before we go about the staff, because if you haven't been out there, it doesn't run if we don't have the Pacinos that move in 1987. If we don't have the Denise Greens, Mr. and Miss
Right.
Green that set up shop and taught me theater, or back in the day, Mr. Sarpolis, our pastor,
Right.
and now Pastor Wilhelm. Boys Ranch doesn't exist if we don't have all of these people that came in and poured life into us. And from what I understand, there's openings. I mean, if you've got a call on your life and you want to do something different, you're being called out of whatever job that you're in, Boys Ranch is a great place.
Well, we, as well as every other child care facility in the country, are short on house parents.
Yep.
Since the pandemic started, that labor pool has dried up. And we are getting with churches all over the United States, asking them to put us on for 3-week prayers. When they start out their service, please pray for not just Boys Ranch, all child care facilities to be able to acquire house parents. And we're asking for those prayers, and it's working. But we still need house parents. I mean, we've got homes that we could open right now if we had people coming to work for us that had a heart for raising children. And I believe they would be well rewarded if they came out and gave us a try, because Boys Ranch is a fantastic place to live. It's great to watch those kids grow, and they become part of your family. I have hundreds of kids that I know that come Christmas, Thanksgiving, a rodeo, whatever, they're in my home, or we are going to their weddings or graduations, or they're part of the family. They are family.
Well, the person I call my dad to this day is somebody that I met at Boys Ranch. It's not the person who was my birth father. It wasn't that guy.
Right.
But it was somebody who took me in out at Boys Ranch. And then I just think of all the Mr. and Miss Jones. I mean, I still keep
Yes.
up with them. And just thank you. If you ever served out at Boys Ranch in any way, whether you were a house parent, you worked out there on the cleaning crew, or you worked in the kitchen, it doesn't matter. Thank you for giving time. I know it wasn't an easy job, and I know we weren't always the best, but man, they came in and they poured some life into us. All right, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to, first of all, get tickets to go to the rodeo. I'll be out there. Miss Pacino will be out there. That's October 18th. And then if people want to just inquire maybe about tours or maybe about jobs, what do they do?
Go to calfarley.org.
Okay.
We've got all the job listings there. You can apply through there. Anything you need to do with Boys Ranch, you can do there, asking for a tour or anything. Or you can call the 800 number that's on there if you really want to talk to somebody, and they will hook you up with the appropriate person either in the Emerald office or out at the ranch. Yeah.
And the same thing goes if maybe you know that there's a kid that could use Boys Ranch. Don't be afraid to call and reach out. I have people that will call me up here at work and say, tell me about Boys Ranch, or will you meet with someone about Boys Ranch? And again, it's just thank you to all those people. Mike, thank you for being here today. I know that you're always on the road doing something on behalf of Boys Ranch, taking care of those donors that have given so much to us and keep the lights on. So we appreciate you and look forward to seeing you on the 18th.
Well, thank you. And I want to do a shout out to my wife, Sandra.
Yeah.
She makes all my shirts.
Sandra made that shirt?
This is the first time I've worn it. She finished it this last weekend. But she makes all my shirts.
I didn't know that.
Oh, she's good. She's
wow. Good. All right. Who knew that Sandra was in charge of the Pacino fit?
Yep. Grandkids, kids, all of it.
Well, man, that's pretty impressive. All right, Mr. Pacino, I appreciate you, and thanks for tuning in. And if you've got somebody that you want us to talk to here on Let's Talk About It, send me an email at ajustice@kmr.com. See you next time.